2008, was it a mistake, the coalition?
Oh, I don't think so. I think Stephen Harper was headed down a path driven by ideology to do nothing about the economic crisis. And something had to shake him up. And either he had to change or the government had to be changed, because hundreds of thousands of people were being thrown out of work. As it happens, he turned around and adopted essentially the program that we had laid out between the three opposition parties. So
he's also used it as a weapon ever since.
Well, sure. I mean, that's Stephen Harper. He likes to pick up a weapon and try to use it. I have a lot of faith in Canadians. They actually like the idea of people working together.
Well, they don't like the idea of a coalition.
Some do, some don't. But they do like the notion that we should work together on their behalf. And that's what I'm saying I will do with whatever mandate I'm given.
What happened in 2004? Give me the 30-second version of what happened there.
It's almost too long ago for me to remember. There's been 4 elections since then. What aspects of it?
The meeting that you and Duceppe and Harper had.
Well, we were called together by Stephen Harper to send a letter to the Governor General to make it clear that if Paul Martin was defeated on the speech from the throne, she should turn to the other parties to govern.
The other parties to govern.
Other parties to govern. And the letter that was written, which we all signed, and which represents the constitutional truth of the matter here in Canada and in the Westminster tradition, was sent to the Governor General. There was no question about it that the ultimate goal here was for Stephen Harper to become Prime Minister. And the more I thought about that, and I later had a conversation one-on-one with Duceppe, and I said, "Are you ready to make Stephen Harper Prime Minister?" And he said he was. And I said, "Well, I'm not, so I'm out of this group."
Well, what do you mean you were out of the group? Did you put an X through your signature, or what did you do?
No, I left the discussions, and I no longer participated in the effort to put pressure on Paul Martin, and I said I am not prepared to vote to make Stephen Harper Prime Minister.
So with that, did it collapse?
Well, it then didn't have the necessary oomph to come to be. Mr. Martin accepted some of the procedural motions, and the crisis was averted. But there's no question that Stephen Harper was prepared to become Prime Minister even though he had fewer seats. Absolutely no question about it. He is simply not telling the truth right now, in my opinion.
He's being less than genuine when he says that's not...
He's not telling the truth.
So he's lying.
Well, I'll put it this way. He's not telling the truth. And just like he said when there would be fixed election dates, and he broke his word on that to the other parties and to Canadians. That's really when I told him to his face, I've lost the ability to trust you now.
I know you keep saying it's hypothetical, what may happen this time round, but you know, we have been through 3 minority governments. Every indication would seem to suggest we're heading towards another minority government of some sort. Who knows who might be at the top of that list, including yourself. If something like that happens, how do you decide who to talk to? I mean, what you've just said about Stephen Harper makes it hard to believe that you would ever sit down and talk to him.
Oh, I think the greater reason is that Stephen Harper's policies are so distant from ours. However,
you almost made a deal, or you were prepared to make a deal with him 6 weeks ago.
If he had agreed to lift every senior out of poverty instead of having an election, that's the kind of thing we would have thought was worthwhile supporting, yes. So what I would do, if I end up with the most seats after this next election, I will reach out to every single party. I will say, here is what we would like to accomplish. What would you like to accomplish? And can you agree with the program we're suggesting?
If one party ends up with more seats than the other, but it's still a minority situation, that party, everyone's in agreement, that party gets the opportunity to meet the House.
Of course.
And if that party can't receive the confidence of the House, then an arrangement similar to 2004 should happen?
Or some arrangement, some other party gets a shot at it. We shouldn't immediately go back to an election. That would be ridiculous. And in the parliamentary tradition, what they call a Westminster tradition, the Governor General, in our case, would turn to another party to say, can you form a government? Can you form a workable government that would have the support of the House? And then it would be that individual's opportunity. That might be me. Who knows how this is all going to turn out? In which case I would reach out to the other parties and say, is anybody ready to work with us here? Can we come up with a common agenda? Here's what we'd like to do. Are there some compromises that would need to be made? Well, of course there would be. But let's see how much we can get done together for a period of time. And it could be informal, it could be case by case, it could be agreement on a speech from the throne, and then maybe agreement on the budget, and then maybe agreement on a certain number of pieces of legislation on a vote-by-vote basis. It could be some other kind of arrangement. There have been many different types of arrangements used, both in Canada and different provinces as well, and around the world. But my goal would always be to try to get the things done that we told Canadians we would get done. Help strengthen their pensions, create some jobs, do something about those credit card interest rates, and particularly work on our healthcare system.
When Stephen Harper says that for him it has to be a majority because if he doesn't get a majority, then the books are already cooked against him, that you and the Liberals and the Bloc will vote non-confidence and immediately try to form an arrangement just between the three of you.
Well, I know he wanted to do that in 2004, but he's fabricating things here. There have been no discussions about that, and he gets the first shot. The question will be, is he willing to work with other parties? Now, I haven't seen that to be his approach in the 5 years that I've seen him as Prime Minister. It really hasn't been, can we sit down and find some common ground? That's never really happened. In fact, normally when I meet with him, he says, you know, we don't really agree on very much. He literally makes that explicit point, which I don't find as a particularly good way to suggest that you're willing to work with people, to be honest. It's not an open, let's see where we can find some common ground, which is what I think a Prime Minister should do. Prime Minister should recognize that lots of people voted for other parties, maybe even a majority of Canadians voted for other parties. And so I would think, out of respect for those Canadians, that whoever is Prime Minister should reach out. If I were Prime Minister, that's what I'd do. I'd say all of those members of Parliament were elected by Canadians and deserve some respect. So let's see what we can work on together.
Last question. Some would see you in the same position that Preston Manning was in through the 90s. That his success allowed Jean Chrétien to win majority after majority after majority because he was splitting the vote between the progressive Conservatives and himself. Does Jack Layton run the risk of being the Preston Manning of this era?
No, because our party is 50 years old. We have been there working for working families, bringing Medicare to Canada, bringing the Canada Pension Plan to Canada, often in minority government situations. We have worked with other parties to get results. That was not what the Reform Party was all about, that's for sure. And so we're a very different kind of animal. I wouldn't see that as a comparison at all.